Good evening, and welcome to Riderpiece Theater. Me, Alista Dayhawk, and tonight, me proud to present Kamen Rider Gacha episode 37. So, the story begins with a frantic Hotarou, frantic Kudo, frantic Renge, frantic Sabi, and this is a scene coming from ER because you see them rushing into the classroom because there's no such thing as the chemy hospital. So the alchemy school is the next best thing. And luckily, there's Professor Kyoka there, and she is there to check things out to see if there's anything. And unfortunately, she became the bearer of bad news. And she said things that unfortunately in real life we will have to hear someday in terms of losing a loved one. And when Kyoka says that there's nothing I can do for this chemy because it's gone, it's dead. And and poor Hotarou, I mean, he is crushed. Like, he was with his mouth open, he is in disbelief, and he's just like, I actually killed a chemy. And Kyoka further explains that apparently the Abyssalis King performs some magic that can turn any chemy into a malgam without a host. And it's using its own malice against it. And if it gets destroyed, the chemy dies. And there's no way to reverse it. Luckily for Hotarou, Kudo, Sabi, and Renge were there to tell him, like, it's not your fault, you didn't know, you did the right thing, like, you're fine, like, it's not your fault. And I know in Hotarou's heart that he made the right call, but he doesn't see it that way. He feels guilty. The despair is really hitting him. Not since, he was beaten the holy hell by, Sabi, nonetheless, if you remember, and he got spooked, and, with himself being all curled up into a ball, like, spooked up, like, this is, like, the second time, and he is just, I can't believe I killed a chemy, and he wants to go home. And Hopper 1 tries to come out from the backpack and talk to Hotarou, but Hotarou assumed that Hopper 1 wants to play, and so he stuffed Hopper 1 back into his backpack and he does the walk of shame out of the classroom. And then Hopper 1 decides to pull an escape and jumps out from the backpack and decides to go on an adventure to hunt down the golden flower. So they both went on their way without even noticing. And we go back to the classroom, and apparently there's another amalgam attack. And Sabi was like, oh, like, how are we going to do this? Like, we can't go and destroy the amalgam because of what happened. And Kudo said the right thing. She said, like, look, I understand, but at the same time, we can't just leave that monster attacking civilians. I mean, it's much worse than than destroying it right now. I get it, but right now it's our duty to protect people, and the people needs us. So Kudo, Sabi, and Renge leave, and we move on from there to Hopper 1. Sorry for the pause, but we get to Hopper 1 and its adventure, and we see Hopper 1 just going on its way to hunt down for a flower at a marketplace, mind you. And I've noticed something, that people have not just stopped what they're doing and just stare at Hopper 1. Because, I mean, in real life, can you imagine Hopper 1 just hopping along and people are just trying to do their thing, and then they spot Hopper 1 and be like, huh? This is a weird looking grasshopper. What's the first thing people will do in this day and age? Take out their phones, take pictures of it, and record and text their friends. Not here in this universe. It's not. Because I think people were like, oh, it's Hopper 1, it's cool. It's like chemies, it's a thing here, so nothing too weird. So people are just like not noticing or just don't even care. And so Hopper 1 finds a flower shop and finds the flower. And before it goes and takes the flower, it gets attacked by a dog, by a lick attack, mind you. So it gets licked by a dog, and it couldn't get the flower, so it decides to go find it somewhere else. And then it gets splashed at by a cook or something, by a restaurant. So it got licked and got splashed by water, and it could be worse for Hopper 1. It could be run over by a white truck of doom. So already the odds are stacked against poor Hopper 1. Yeah, but it's on an adventure. It's on a quest to hunt down the golden flowers. So yeah, I mean, what's an adventure without any trap holes and splashes and lick attacks? So we move on from the adventures of Hopper 1 to the restaurant scene. And at the very end, I will explain why this scene could have been 10 times better. But the writers of the show, they suck. I mean, then again, they wrote Ghost and Savor, which I consider to be the least favorites of writers, in my opinion, but I digress. So Hotarou is back home. He is in depressed mode, and lo and behold, we have the triumphant return of Mama-san. She came out from the character closet, and she is back from the other side of town with groceries in hand, and she greets her son, but she notices that Hotarou is depressed, so she decides to cook him pancakes. And then we have a mention of Hotarou's dad in this scene, because as Mama-san placed his pancakes on the table, she mentions that, hey, like, I always serve you pancakes every time you are sad, especially when it comes to your father. And then we get a flashback of mini Hotarou drawing his father, and we get the infamous picture of the family together with the dad being, the face being, blocked. And we get back to the present timeline, and Mama-san says to her son that, hey, even though we lost something, there's always others to treasure. And Mama-san just ups and walks away because she has a phone call, and with that advice causes Hotarou to remember, hey, Hopper 1. So he goes to his backpack in search of Hopper 1, but it's gone, and he is on the hunt for Hopper 1. I'm not going to mention here what I just said earlier, so I'm going to save it to the very end. So we move on from that to Weird Sister number 3, I believe. No, before Weird Sister number 3, we get to Kudo and Sabi and Renge, and they're having a horrible time. because you see Kudo holding off against the ant malgam, but she knows if she goes all out, the chemy will die. And Sabi and Renge are evacuating people, and you see a kid dropping his plushie and tries to go back and get it, but mom decides to quickly picks up her son and just like, no, we have to run and hide. And you see, Renge and Sabi being surrounded by copy malgams, because the ant malgam has the ability to make copies of itself, and you see all these ant malgams just around the buildings. But luckily, they managed to defeat the copies. But Kudo, on the other hand, she doesn't know what to do, and she gets beat up. And she's calling out Hotarou. But even with Hotarou there, what can he do? What can Kudo do? Where in the hell is Fuga? Where in the hell is Fuga? So our heroes right now, they can't do anything, because if they do, it will cost a chemy life. So we move on from Kudo getting beat up to Weird Sister number 3, and number 3 wants to join in on the fight, but the king says no, we have pressing matters to attend to, which is how to take the egg out from Hotarou's body. And Weird Sister number 3 was in shock when she heard that, Hotarou has an egg inside of him. And we get further explanation as to why Hotarou is able to transform into gacha and have multiple forms and all that. According to the Abyssalis King, it's due because of the egg. The egg has special powers. The driver itself, it's like a conduit or a focus, something to channel and hone the powers of the egg. That's why he was able to transform into gacha and many other forms, is because of the egg. And the only way to separate the egg, because he also mentions that due to the fact that Hotarou has been using the egg's powers, the egg will not let go. It's almost as they are bounded towards each other. And the only way to separate the egg from Hotarou is to turn him into a malgam. How, you may ask? Well, he needs to go into the deepest pits of his despair. And that's the only way that he can transform into one and be able to take the egg off of him. So that's the goal of the king, to turn it into a malgam and take the egg. And number 3 is asking too many questions. Like, how can you turn Hotarou into a malgam? Do you think that it will be that easy? Which causes the king to be upset and just tells her, hey, you talk too much. You talk too much. But again, number 3 has the face of concern on her face. She's afraid. She's concerned about Hotarou, because why is she feeling this way? The old number 3 wouldn't care so much about Hotarou, especially when she has revenge on her mind after countless defeats. But this time, this is twice now that she is concerned about Hotarou. And we go to Weird Sister number 1, who's been played by a 9-year-old. She has come up from the character closet because we have not seen her since how many episodes ago? And she asked the king, okay, so once you achieve your goal, are you gonna bring back Master Greyon? And the king was like, no. But he answered, but ultimately what I got from his response was no, I'm not going to bring your master back. And number one just bows, but you see her face like she is pissed off. So I have this theory that number one may plan a coup. She's going to plan a coup against the king. And ultimately, I just think that it's not going to end well. And yeah, it's not going to end well. So we move on from the discovery, the powers of the egg, to Hotarou. Speaking of Hotarou, he is searching for his partner in crime, but it led him to the battlefield instead because he hears screaming and yelling, and he comes to the battlefield with poor Sabi and Renge being held hostage by these ant clones, and the real one is beating Kudo up to the point where she demorphs. And Hotarou, with the driver in hand, is ready to fight, but he hesitates because of what happened earlier. But he knows he has to fight, or else Kudo and the rest of his friends will seriously be hurt, or worse, killed. So he transforms, but he doesn't do much. I mean, he tries to plead with it, but it's not listening to him. And you see the ant malgam just beating the hell out of Hotarou. And it's almost as if he just stood there and took it because he knows that if he attacks, then it's over. And so we witnessing a royal beating, and we get to Hopper 1, because Hopper 1 was apparently on the battlefield as well, and it was on a top of a tree, and one of the ant malgam's attacks went to the tree, and it just knocked down Hopper 1 off the branch, and it came to and discovers, hey, I found the flowers. So it found the flowers, and we get to the next scene, and it looked like it's going to be the end for the Alliance, because you see the ant malgam's ready to launch its final attack, but luckily Spanner and Miroto Sensei came from behind and destroys the malgams. And it's cool because the real malgam got a ranged sword from the back, so it got impaled and just falls face first, and you see the sword sticking out from the back. And Spanner, well, this is something I want to mention, guys, if you caught it. Is the suit actor injured? Because you see the suit actor in his rider form, and he gingerly walks as if he has a limp. And did he get injured off screen? What's going on? Because since the episode started, I haven't seen Spanner at all, or even mentioned Spanner fighting somewhere else. So how did he get injured? So it didn't make any sense. So why is he limping like that? And we see Spanner limping for whatever reason, and typical Spanner fashion, he's like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, are you trying to get yourselves killed? And then Miroto Sensei comes in and says, look, I heard the news from Kyoka, but I am deeply sorry to say this, but I value my students' lives over the chemies. That's what he says. And Hotarou was in his rider form, so we couldn't get his reaction to what Miroto Sensei said. But if it was a different situation and if it wasn't dire, then I'm sure Hotarou was like, Miroto Sensei, how could you say that? How dare you talk that way to my chemies? But the situation is very dark right now, and we didn't get like a noise reaction either. So it's just like, yeah, Hotarou, yeah, human lives over chemy's lives. It's the way it is. So after the save, we get to see Hopper 1, and Hopper 1 has the flowers on its back. And, well, before that, I'm jumping ahead here. So Spanner takes his sword out from the malgam's back, destroys it, and you see the ant chemy return back to his card. Hotarou demorphs and runs towards Spanner to see if the chemy card is okay. But unfortunately, just like the skateboard chemy, the ant chemy is dead because you see the card all white. So, yeah, so they lost another one. And then we have Hopper 1 jumping in and tells Hotarou, hey, I found the flowers. And Hotarou's like, Hopper 1, what do you have these flowers for? And then this happy moment gets interrupted because here comes the Abyssalis King with the 2 remaining sisters and does the unthinkable. It turns Hopper 1 into a malgam. However, during the process, you see Hopper 1 trying to fight its magic, but ultimately it transforms into a malgam. Everybody is in shock. Hotarou, again, he is in disbelief that his partner in crime is a malgam, and it goes on a rampage. Hotarou doesn't want to fight it. Spanner is like, if you're not going to do it, then I will. But unfortunately for Spanner, he gets defeated rather easily and quickly. He gets knocked out. And this is where Hotarou jumps in and pleads with it. And you see him trying to tell it to stop. And he gets speed up, but he gets right back up, holds him back. Same thing. It's very sad to watch. And then during the fight, you see Hopper malgam resisting. You see it trying to stop itself a couple of times, and Hotarou noticed this, but again, he gets speed up. And then it came to a point where Hotarou decides that, you know what? If you're in a lot of pain, and if my death can help you ease that pain, then do so. And then Hopper malgam takes up on that offer, but stops itself. And yeah, it stopped itself. So you would think that Hopper 1 is fighting back, but things turn tragic almost immediately. Because remember the kid that accidentally dropped his plushie? He came back with his mom, and he found the plushie and picks it up. The mother was behind, and then all of a sudden, this is where Hopper malgam turns around, stares at the family, and goes after them. They're on the floor, and you know what that means. Hotarou once again in the very same spot as last week. He is forced to transform into Iron Gotcha and forced to destroy Hopper 1. And yeah, it's very sad. You see Kudo and Minato Sensei helping the family and take them away from the danger. And you see Hotarou quickly demorphs and goes into the smoke. And once the smoke, goes away, you see Hopper 1 in pale white and black eyes. So Hopper 1 is dead. And we see flashbacks of Hopper 1 and Hotarou's time together. And this is where he unleashed his pain. He was screaming and yelling, as you can imagine, because again, he once again killed a chemy, only this time it was his best friend. And everybody was in shock and disbelief to see Hotarou, an innocent kid, screaming in pain like that. Something that they never imagined seeing. And you see dark energy just coming out from him. And the king was like, okay, this is it. He's going to turn into a malgam. And once it happens, I will come in and steal the egg. But it wasn't the case. Instead of turning into a malgam, he turns into an egg. An Ivan Ooze type of egg. Not purple, obviously, but it's like a white egg. And it gets transported somewhere. And the king was like, what the hell just happened? I expected a malgam, not an egg. And so in the last scene, you see the egg in some secret area. The weather changes. You see raindrops. You see thunder and lightning. And inside of the egg, you see Hotarou crying, saying, I'm sorry. But then he hears a voice calling out his name. He turns around and looks at this egg. And that's the end of the episode, guys. So I did say that I will explain myself as to why the restaurant scene could have been 10 times better and missed the mark. Well, here it is. Once again, the writers missed an ultimate opportunity. This was their second chance of really confessing his mom that, hey, I'm a Kamen writer, and just tell her his problems. And this goes back to Buffy, where she tells her mom that, hey, I'm the Slayer, and I have a job because, Destiny wanted me to become the Slayer, and I can't walk away, this and that. And Mrs. Summers was like, are you crazy or something? Can you not be a Slayer? And of course, Buffy is trying to explain that this is something that she cannot walk away from. And they were arguing between each other, which ultimately, Buffy went out the door, and Mom was like, if you leave, don't ever come back. And Buffy leaves. It was, I think, in the finale of season 2. And yeah, and I'm not saying that Mama-san would do the same thing as Miss Summers did and chase Hotarou, like kick Hotarou out, but I feel that, like, Hotarou, what I'm trying to say is that Hotarou needs his mom. He needs his father. And this is like the second time he's been placed in this position. The first time where he was beaten to a pulp by a possessed Sabi, and being inside the alchemy school, he's all shooken up. He's in a ball position, and he is spooked. And he could have just went home and confessed then. But you have this scene where, again, Hotarou could have just hugged his mom, cried, and just be like in confess mode and tell her everything. And once he tells her everything, I believe Mama-san could have gave his son the best advice ever, and more importantly, the support he needs. Because sure, he has his friends, but is that really enough? I believe that he needs a parent right now. And I would have staged this as, Hotarou being depressed as usual. Mama-san comes in, and Hotarou, instead of Mama-san going in the back, cooking the pancakes, he could have just run towards her, hugs her, and cries, and then have this discussion of, hey, mom, I'm in a situation where I cannot fix a certain problem. Can you help me? And it will lead to the confession that, hey, I'm a Kamen writer. I've been doing this for 37 episodes, breaking the fourth wall here. But, I've been, hunting chemies, making them my friends, to destroying malgams, defeating bosses. I was doing all these things without you even noticing. And I'm in a situation where I killed a chemy, and I know that I had no choice, because if I didn't do anything, 2 of my friends could have been killed. I need a mother right now. I need my mother. And that could have been the most powerful, epic scene. But it didn't happen that way. And that's the reason why the writers missed another opportunity to really use Mama-san instead of her being a prop. Because like I said last week, she's one of the most useless characters in the entire show, aside from the Alchemy Association. Why have her there if you're not going to use her properly? And I'm going to link the Buffy scene in the description box after the summary. So hopefully you get a chance to look at the scene and be able to understand why I mentioned this scene in the first place. But like I said before, Mama-san could never kick her own son out the way Miss Summers did to Buffy. I don't see that. I see Mama-san, if she was told the truth, I think she will be the most supporting mother ever in the entire show. And be like, son, I'm there for you. And what you did was right, because if you haven't done anything, your friends would have been killed. And it's not your fault. I know that you're feeling really horrible right now, but inside of your heart, you know you did the right call. And don't blame yourself for what happened. And that's the way I would have shot the scene. That's the way I would have wrote the scene. But these people wrote Ghost and Saber. Those 2 shows, in my opinion, are bad shows. But I digress. I just think that they suck at writing, or they're just playing it too safe. That's something I forgot to mention last week. But I mention it here because I feel like if they're great writers, why are they playing it safe? Because by playing it safe, you miss a lot of perfect opportunities to do a couple of things with these characters. But it is what it is. But I'm not going to rant too much about them because it's going to be too long. And it's already long as it is, so I'll move on. Another thing is that don't feel bad about the chemy deaths, because I get this feeling that Hotarou, with his rainbow form, he will revive Hopper 1 and the other 2 chemies. Because think about it. If Hopper 1 dies, how in the hell will Hotarou transform to his basic form? How is he going to transform into Platinum without Hopper 1? So, yes, you're sad, but by the time he gets his final form next week, the 3 chemies will be brought back to life. So don't worry about it too much. Yes, I felt sad, but at the same time, they'll be back. They're like Chucky. He always comes back. Other than that, I already mentioned about the suit. So I might say or repeat the same thing next week, but I mean, it's okay. And I made a discovery, and apparently the magic number when the final form appears, it's 38, because I've noticed in Revise, Geats, Gacha, and possibly Saber and 01, 38 is the magic number that the final form makes its debut. And guess what? Next week is episode 38 and Rainbow Gacha makes its debut. That's something that I wanted to add because I thought it was, I made a discovery. Why not share it? So, yeah. Other than that, give me your thoughts and opinions about episode 37. Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Give me your thoughts and opinions on the comments below. And I will link the Buffy scene on the description box, and hopefully you have a chance to watch it. And thank you so much for listening. Please give a like if you like it. Please subscribe. And I will see you all on the other side of Oblivion. Johnny!